can't rebuild the bone structure, the ligaments, the nerves, etc. It falls apart, just like these starfish. And I can't tell you when it'll reach a point, but when you see organisms like the higher in the food chain, the orca, orcinus, the killer whales, where there's no babies beyond a year, when you see the seabirds along the Georgia Strait from Dane and Durnford, completely dead, not just a little dead, but completely dead, not even insects.
No insects, no predatory birds, no bird flight. He saw one flock of birds so far.
And the problem is, you see, they want to assume that it's somehow contained. One of the doctors, actually Dr. Ron Klatz, came and visited me. He was on the show 2 days ago here at Radiant Studio. He was the founder of the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. He says, it's too bad you're living in Southern California. I said, no, look over at my desk over there. You can look at the cesium detector. We're basically not getting hit by radiation, hardly at all. Where it's going is hitting the British Columbia coastline area and a little south toward Seattle, Washington. And then that Kuroshio current splits and goes north and south toward Alaska and down the coast. But most people don't realize there's a number of different what I call streams of radiation. There's the fast stream that's moving, that's constantly carrying new fresh radiation. There's a slow stream that's moving in deep waters of the ocean along the trenches. And then there's a high altitude stream that's probably between 26 to 30,000 feet, because my experience and the people who've emailed me, and they've had radiation detector in commercial aircraft, have told me it was only when they get up to around 26,000 feet where all of a sudden it spiked, and they get massive surges of over 2,000 counts per minute. Now, I know some people will try to say on these Discovery Channel and so on that that's a natural increase in radiation. No, it's not. All of a sudden you go from 100 or 200 counts or less, 50 counts to over 2,000, and then when you drop down just a little bit in altitude, all of a sudden it drops again. That's because there's a radiation belt there and there's a plume at that level. Now, it might spread out, but it actually can be relatively cohesive. And the problem is, because we don't have data, we can actually create a three-dimensional, four-dimensional model of it. I asked 2.5 years ago Senator Wyden from Oregon and Senator Feinstein. I talked to her staff and asked them for their nuclear expert, and they refused to put data logging radiation detectors in all the aircraft. But citizens could do it themselves and just upload and say, hey, I'm going to take a detector on the aircraft, I'm going to record that data over that flight, and then I'm going to download that to a database. So, for example, you could do it, Jeff, or I could do it. We could have people commercially just taking their Spectre Pluses and just clip it to their seat and record the data. Well, how many counts? What time is it? Where are you in your flight? And then if we knew the flight paths of the airline, we could actually create a data plume map of exactly where the plumes are and where they're going and what velocity and what altitude. If we had real-time data like that, we'd also know when those plumes are going to hit an area where a weather system was going to cause it to fall as rain or snow. So like the radioactive snow that hit Missouri last year. The problem is, when we don't have data, it's because they purposely shut it off, like they get rid of, and I confronted the so-called director of radiation under Dianne Feinstein. I said, well, you guys, when you took out the radiation detector, he said, it working perfectly fine. I said, well, really, you didn't put the one back in Idaho after it shot through the ceiling, because the radiation level shot over the mountains there and went into orbit, and you guys shut off the reactor detector from, detecting radiation from Japan, and didn't put a new one in. And they didn't expand the number of detectors or say, hey, let's test water, fish, food, just like it was being tested at the University of California, Berkeley Nuclear Radiation Detection Program under Dr. Kai Vetter. After I contacted him over 2.5 years ago, they completely shut down and decided not to even talk to me or email and refused to do any testing on anything. And that's the same with any government department. The only people who have been doing testing are the native peoples of British Columbia, which tested and found radiation, and the fishermen in British Columbia and Alaska. Now, what I see coming is a catastrophic reduction in health. I can't tell you when it'll hit or who it'll hit first. It'll hit the weak and the elderly. It'll hit the unborn. It'll hit the people trying to have babies and worried about organogenesis when something's amplified 100 million times in utero. It's going to cause lots of diseases, like we know cesium-137 in animal models causes a catastrophic increase in breast cancer. It's a glandular excitotoxin And what it does is it grabs every gland in the body because it's an analog of magnesium and potassium and it's concentrated. And then it's going to cause a very massive increase in cancer rates. But it's also going to cause cardiac arrhythmias, heart failure, atrial fibrillation, small for dates, lack of release of growth hormones like it is in Japan with these kids that don't grow anymore. And you can measure their growth hormone and their growth velocity is down to 0 or very close to it. So, I can make some predictions, but without data, it's only conjecture. And the problem is they don't want us to get data. So they won't even get a dialogue to say, we're going to disagree with you, Deagle, and we think you're a fool. Well, point out why I'm a fool and tell me technically why you can get a better plan. But when you do it that way, when you present it as a scientific dialogue, asking someone to please challenge it, but do it in a scientific and a valid non-hominem way, they don't want to do that. What they want to do is they want to just say you're nuts to ask the question rather than, hey, let's go do a test data and see if we can get a better hypothesis and a better thesis as to what's going on and how dangerous is this. But we're not getting any dialogue from anybody. Government, International Atomic Energy Agency,
we're not going to either.
Nations, nobody. Nobody's going to talk, and nobody's even going to disagree or even make anything other than they're basically even silent. I mean, I even beg people on the show. I said, if you're a radiation expert, if you're a medical doctor, if you're a government agent, if you're anybody, disagree with me, call in. And not a one in almost 4 years now. Not a one. So what I see happening is what I call gutless evil. It's just disgusting. And people don't understand Fukushima by itself, without genetically modified food, which is also sterilizing us and destroying human biology, without fluoridated water, without stacked vaccines, without polypharmacy, which is also rampant, without all of these things, the human race is doomed. My prediction is, and this is, a Deagle prediction, that within a generation, more or less, human beings will not be able to reproduce except if they submit their gametes to a laboratory. The intelligence and IQ of individuals will be so dumbed down that they'll basically...
Oh, it's dropping like a rock.
Subhuman,
dropping like a rock.
Subhuman robots, or what I call zombified.
Well, that'll give it an easier road for AI to take over all this, what you're saying.
Right, and AI will take our artificial intelligence and upgraded humans, and people... for example, I expect in Japan here in the next year or two them to announce to say, hey, we realize that all you Japanese women can't have normal children, so we've set up a special program so you can submit your ovum and your gametes to your laboratory, and we'll make sure we do polar body exclusion to make sure you have a perfectly genetically normal child, and we'll even grow the child in a fetal laboratory for you if you don't want to grow it in your body using gamete intrafallopian tube transport. And people say, Dr. Deagle, that's just sci-fi. I said, well, I'll give you an equipment list and show you exactly how you could do it. So when people say, you can't do that, Deagle, I said, well, you're talking to the wrong doctor. I have skill sets, let's put it that way. And what disturbs me is people don't realize whether we could do it is not the question, is whether we morally should do it or whether we should tackle Fukushima Daiichi. And if I was watching from a galactic, 4D channel, the program Earth, I would say, as a being in a foreign world, I would be telling all my children beings to look away. It's too gross. Look away. Don't turn on that channel.
Right.
It'll disturb you. You won't sleep tonight. You'll have nightmares. You'll see these beastly people committing a form of global genocide, auto-genocide. You'll see people ignoring something cataclysmic and thinking everything is fine. In fact, the Japanese are so crazy, they say if you smile, the radiation won't hurt you. They actually say that. And now, of course, they're planning the Olympics and everything. I think, oh my gosh, this is like if you put a happy face on it, you're not going to get radioisotopes damaging your DNA like cosmic rays. So that's a Fukushima. Then on top of that, we've got ISIS, which we know, I call it terrorists are us. And I like the graphic that you have up on your website, which shows Mossad. We know that the town, south of Amman, Jordan, where ISIS was trained, supplied by American an Israeli and an academy, which is the Blackwater Security new name, trained there, and now we supply them with satellite phones and equipment and Stinger missiles and everything else, and they've gone from 50,000 man force to 200,000, and somehow the globalists think they get control of these guys. At some point, the Israelis, who've been deeply involved with getting these guys going, they're not going to control these extreme Islamic maniacs, and Israel will have to resort to the Samson option, which is nukes and biological and chemical weapons, and we'll have a cataclysmic nuclear, thermonuclear war involving Russia and China and everybody. You know, and people say, well, that won't happen. I said, you know, all the controllers that keep telling each other, just like these meetings of the Bilderbergers, most of their marketing is to tell each other they're still in control when they don't control anything, including even their bowels, let alone the world. So I find it really hilarious when I get feedback from people that are very wealthy, like billionaires, through various channels, that tell me that they're freaked out by the fact that the people with levers of power are very rich, but they're socio-psychopaths that are Satanists. And they really could give a rat's behind whether or not most people on earth die, because their ultimate drug isn't just money and power, it's megadeath. Not the heavy metal rock group, we're talking about megadeath. They get off on seeing people die, and nations die, and human beings writhe in agony as they pass on to the next world. I mean, and people say, you're just exaggerating. I said, no, I'm not. I mean, the ultimate drug to these people is seeing others die in horror.
Got it.
That's why Fukushima's left.
Yeah.
That's why our world is heading to an economic cataclysm in the mark of the beast. That's why they want to get rid of 90% of the human race, because they just want to genetically engineer a subclass of, I call, you know, the troglodytes.
That's good. That's good. That's good. All right, hold on, Bill. We'll come right back in just a few minutes.
Yeah, that's all they want. You know, they don't want us around. We're too pesky. Ask questions and everything.